Hello everyone, welcome live to 3YTV tonight's broadcast of the National Sim Racing Association here from the Homestead Miami Speedway. I'm Peter Short, and joining me in the booth here tonight is none other than Drew Eisenman. And Drew, great to be down here in southern Florida. We were going to be up in ice-cold Canada, but we're going to be down here by the beach after a late change in the schedule. So if you're expecting to see these trucks turning left and right here tonight, well, that won't be the case, but I'll tell you what, always great to be down here in southern Florida, Drew, because this racetrack is notorious for a lot of side-by-side racing.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite 1.5s, that's for sure. Produces a ton of racing, kind of the original kind of new age, track with the progressive banking, kind of being able to vary your lineup here a little bit more than I think some of the other 1.5s. And yeah, it certainly is warmer here in virtual Florida than it would have been in virtual Canada there, Peter.
Yeah, that is for sure. I'll tell you what, though, here tonight, Drew, that man right there on your screen, right there, James Lorello on a tear, winning last week at Twin Ring Motegi.
He's been exceptionally quick all season long. He probably could have gotten a few more victories here this season. But he's quick here tonight as well. No big surprise with quite a few names towards the top of the times in practice, with Mitchell Adams being quickest currently, James Thorello second, Bill Edwards third. None of those names are surprising. All three of those guys have been up there all season long. And no real big surprises. So I was kind of hoping, just for the sake of the viewers, that maybe these updates, little small tweaks, would have mixed up the field a little bit. I'm interested to see if that Highline is going to come into play at all here at Homestead, because those aero updates kind of let you get right up against that wall a little bit more than you would have probably been able to in the past without kind of going over that line, as that 13 truck is not really demonstrating what iRacing had envisioned with that Highline. But maybe later in this run, later in this race, later in runs when tires get pretty worn out, we'll see some of those guys venture up top.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see that here. We heard from iRacing that they changed the way that the aerodynamics model works. Like you were mentioning, that might make that Highline a little bit more drivable than it usually is, because typically what we've seen here at Homestead Miami over the years in the iRacing services, really a lot of drivers gravitate towards that, what I would call the second groove, not right down there on the white line, but about a half groove to a groove up. That has seemed to be the quick line, as the checkered flag does fall here on the practice session. So we'll jump over here into qualifying. Of course, it is the Sim Racing Shirts pole shootout here. You can see a look at the 1.5 mile Homestead Miami Speedway here tonight. Going to be a fun one, Drew, as always. It was a great race that we saw last week at Twin Ring Motegi, and definitely sets the stage for tonight's action at Homestead Miami. Definitely going to be a good one, folks. We want to welcome you in the chat. We got 11 people currently watching. We got Tana Himmelman rooting on Ben Adams and Andrew Himmelman, and I got to say, Drew Himmelman is kind of on a bad luck streak. This doesn't seem to have any good luck here recently.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate for that Ford truck. He's had decent pace, all season long. I don't think he's necessarily had race-winning pace at any one track. I don't think he's been the quickest guy, but he's certainly been much quicker than his results would indicate. And last week, there at Twin Ring Motegi, caught up in an incident not of his doing, kind of getting squished into the inside while they're on the front stretch. And that's kind of been the story of his season, unfortunately, is either making mistakes, which I don't think has been quite as common as the other stuff that's happened to him, which is just kind of stuff unfolding around him out of his control that kind of puts him in bad situations and has compromised his race finishes.
Yeah, you see him right there on the screen. Meanwhile, we do have a couple of qualifying times starting to trickle in. JT Poole currently atop the board in the number 26 machine. James Lorello, your points leader, slotting into second over Bill Edwards. We saw Lorello and Edwards have another fantastic battle last week at Twin Ring Motegi, and I was expecting to see both of those drivers up front here again tonight. But what about Mitchell Adams, your reigning Simbox Truck Series champion? And of course, if you're joining us now, this is race number 14 of the Simbox Truck Series Championship. And of course, Drew, one thing we haven't mentioned here tonight is we're closing in on the Simbox chase for the championship. Only a couple of rounds here entering into tonight left until we'll figure out what 10 drivers go for that championship. And definitely has been a fantastic season so far, and I can't wait to see what we have in store for us.
Yeah, I'd love to give the viewers a rundown of the points, but unfortunately, Dan Lisa's down. So I don't think we have a points graphic. Do we, Pete, prepared?
Unfortunately, we do not. The calculator that the league uses, which is called Dan Lisa, is down, and hopefully that will be rectified before next week. So we weren't able to. They weren't even able to update points this week, Drew. So they're a couple of weeks behind on that. That's why we don't really have any type of standings coming into tonight, unfortunately. But I can confirm Lorello, with his points win last week, did extend his lead just a little bit. What about Philip Scott there, jumping onto the charts in 4th place, right in front of Bill Edwards? Great qualifying run for him. Meanwhile, the track here starting to get a little bit quiet. We do have, looks like the 77 here, Doug Neal, in the Simbox truck right there, sporting that 77 Simbox vehicle all season long here in the Simbox Truck Series. Jordan Shepler looks like he's still out there on the racetrack. There he is. But right now, 27 drivers have elected to take time here in qualifying, and Drew, that's a pretty healthy field considering the point in the season we're at.
Yeah, that it certainly is. It's a pretty solid car count. After, I think Twin Wing Motegi was maybe a little bit lower than people were expecting. I think close to 30 trucks is what this league is certainly capable of pulling on a weekly basis, and that's right around where we are here at Homestead. I know a lot of people really like this track. If you like intermediates, you typically like Homestead. I think it originally, in its pre-high banking configurations, had a ton of personality, almost like Milwaukee. And then obviously in 2002, 2003 NASCAR off season, they redid this whole thing. So that's been quite a few years now. But it really gave this thing like a new life in multi-grooveness. And you can run really high up against the wall here. You can run the middle lane. Running that bottom lane is going to be a challenge unless the car's pretty loose, I think. Or the car's, if the car's in an extreme handling situation, maybe that bottom becomes viable. But Homestead's a lot of fun. It provides drivers a lot of options. And, it's I've said this earlier in the broadcast, but it's my personal favorite 1.5, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun. And, of course, it was the final race of the NASCAR Championship for quite a few years. So this racetrack will be very familiar to a lot of people here in... I'll tell you what, it's going to be a good one here tonight. Peter John Serto in the chat, rooting on Peter Serto in the number 32 Jansen Racing Engines truck here tonight. Tana Himmelman, not an Auburn fan, a Alabama fan. I will say my reservations there, Tana. As a college football fan myself, I don't have much more to say there. But I'll tell you what, down on the racetrack, I have a lot of things to say because the cars are already gritting. And I'll tell you what, Drew, the number 9 machine, James Lorello, he's going to be picking up another Sim Racing Shirts Pole Award right there in that number 9 machine, knocking off your reigning Simbox Truck Series champion, Mitchell Adams, there in the 49 truck to win the pole here tonight. So congratulations to James Lorello. But Drew, why don't you take us through tonight's starting lineup?
Absolutely. On pole, as previously mentioned, that 9 truck, James Dorello, starting to his outside. Seems like these guys are racing 1-2 every week for the past few weeks. Mitchell Adams, JT Poole will be starting on the inside of the second row there in 3rd position with Nathan Maurer to his outside. Philip Scott will be starting 5th. And to his outside will be that 50 truck of Bill Edwards. Joshua Sobel will start in 7th position. Outside of him will be that 28 truck of Jamar Dumas. And then moving back just a little bit further through the field will be that 4 truck of Andrew Himmelman starting in 9th, and Ben Adams rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, sorry about the grid. It went by a little bit quickly, focusing on something, but I'll tell you what, you can see the people lining up down there at the bottom of the screen. So we'll Dumas there, row 4, row 5, Himmelman, Adams, like you mentioned there, Drew. Robert Dudley, Jordan Shepler on row number 6, 15 and number 13. Row number 7, Jeff Price, Zach Howell. Row number 8, Ben Mashburn and Peter Serto. Behind them, TJ Buck and Colin Ullery. And rounding out your top 10, Doug Neal and Chris Darling.
Yeah, Paul Bilson will be starting in 21st. A little bit of a disappointing effort for Paul, alongside Justin White to his outside, who also has typically been pretty strong here in qualifying. Stephen Doziak Jr. will be starting 23rd. Doug Milner in that 6 truck 24th. Barry Knapp in the 42 25th. Matt Vanderkoy starting in 26th. Jeffrey Johnson Jr., we see him start at the back all the time in these races, and he just always manages to seemingly find his way up into the top 10. We'll be starting 27th. Michael Mooney in 28th, and then Brian Bradley will be rounding out our field in 29th.
So that is going to do it for tonight's starting lineup. Pace car going to be headed down pit road right here. Late lunge down pit road for that iRacing pace car. Green flag in the flagman's hand, and James Lorello gets us underway as the whole field goes to the stripe for green flag here at Homestead, Miami.
Yeah, great start for that 9 truck, able to clear that 49, but that 49 coming up to his outside. Here we go. This is what makes Homestead so great. We got 3 wide battle for the lead coming out of turn 2. I think that 49 truck's going to have the momentum, though. We'll see if he's able to carry that momentum on the high side through 3 and 4 as James Lorello cuts that truck to the bottom. Man, that 49 looks really good. That high lane looks a little bit better than I was expecting it to, but maybe a little tight off there, as the 9 truck able to hold steady to his outside. But we got racing throughout the field here, Peter.
Yeah, great job by the whole field. Meanwhile, back up the front, your pole sitter, the number 9 Lorello. He wants to get back up to the point, racing with Mitchell Adams, who was able to lead the first lap here tonight. Still side by side halfway down the backstretch off into turn number 3. Lorello using the more commonplace line here around this race track that I mentioned earlier, about 1 groove up off the bottom, and he is going to take the race lead after it's all said and done. But now here comes Mitchell Adams doing the over-under. Great racing here in the first 2 laps.
Yeah, as it's just fantastic, and it's kind of what we were talking about. Oh, man, that is early in the race to be doing that kind of maneuver there off of turn 2, as that 49 truck gave no quarter to the 9 and just really decided to take that position clear, as the 9 there is going to get back by him through 3 and 4. And you wouldn't know it, I think, based on the statistics of this race, but for the majority of lap 3, Mitchell Adams, in fact, led it, even though James Lorello led the lap prior and that lap itself. So a little interesting thing there. And now we're riding on board with this 26 truck. A little bit of a different look for that 26 truck. Normally kind of have that Wonder Bread Ricky Bobby scheme going on it. And we got some select chips on board the 26 this week with that white, black, and red scheme. Pretty good looking truck there. Looking back at Nathan Maurer in 4th position and Philip Scott in 5th. Kind of a little bit of a pressure to JT Poole. JT Poole, he's kind of been one of those drivers that has been either exceptionally quick or kind of struggling there towards the tail end of the top 10, maybe 5th to 7th place truck, but a really good run from him tonight. Shouldn't be too surprising considering his form at these 1.5s.
Yeah, looking now just outside the top 10, there's Colin Ullery in the 14 of Jeff Price right in front of him. We're seeing some of those different lines that we talked about earlier on. You see Shepler running a little bit up the racetrack. There's Bill Edwards in the number 50 machine. He's running right behind Andrew Himmelman, who's slotted himself up in the 8th spot here in the early running. And what about Robert Dudley in the number 15? Drew, he's one of those drivers. We mentioned this last week as there were 3 wide coming out of turn number 2. Dudley's one of those drivers, typically doesn't qualify all too great, but we see him slowly but surely climb his way through the field, and he's doing that again here tonight. I'm sure we'll see him near the top 5 at some point. Meanwhile, there's Joshua Sobel off a spectacular run at Twin Ring Motegi 1 week ago in that very festive number 30 Stay Tuned Sport Toyota Tundra, right underneath the number 5 of Ben Adams, who also put together a fantastic comeback last week at Twin Ring Motegi. Definitely wasn't expecting that after Adams involved in an early race accident but he battled back all race long, got himself a top 10. Very solid showing from that number 5. Hopefully he can keep it nice and clean, as now we'll see the 50 and the 4 go side by side, but some fantastic action here in the first 5 to 10 laps, Drew.
Absolutely. The 50 truck kind of had a not great initial start. I'm not quite sure if just check up or just kind of sometimes you can just kind of start in the wrong lane and that can cost you 3 spots. Started 6th, dropped to 9th there within the first few laps. But that can kind of be a little frustrating sometimes as a driver when you have a decent qualifying effort and then you kind of drop behind guys that maybe you think you're a little bit faster than. It'll be interesting to see how that 50 truck tries to gain those spots back. Though now we're looking Colin Ullery here, and now 77 there of Doug Neal, who is way at the back of the pack. What happened with him, Peter?
Yeah, definitely some damage on that truck. He's about 4 seconds back behind the next car in front of him. That would be Barry Knapp right now. But you can see quite a bit of damage on that Simbox truck. Both sides, the right side and the left side, showing damage. So not sure if he's had an excursion with another car or an excursion with the wall, but this is not the start that Doug Neal was hoping for here in the early going here at Homestead, Miami, as we're working lap number 10.
Yeah, it's certainly frustrating. Kind of as we talked about the 50 truck kind of losing spots and being frustrated. I looked back and I think that this update kind of reset my graphics setting because his truck was not rendered on the track as we were looking at the leaders from my computer. So unfortunately, I was not able to go see what happened to him. But that's already a long set up to be a long night for that 77 truck. Qualifying it just inside the top 20 and now back to 29th. We'll see if Doug Neal can recover. Who knows? We said the same thing about that 5 truck last week of Ben Adams, and he was able to recover for a top 5. So I am certainly not discounting Doug Neal, our Daytona winner, if I'm not mistaken, just a few weeks ago as we got a replay queued up. Peter, what are we going to look at?
Yeah, we're watching number 24 machine. Oh, there was contact. I think that was Paul Bilson in the 51. And Chris Darling got a piece of his teammate as the 24 Mashburn went spinning down off the racetrack. No caution. We stay green flag in everything that's been going on. We get one more look at this. Bilson there in the 51 to the outside, and I think Mashburn might have thought he was clear. Came up the racetrack. There's the contact, and look at Darling just getting a piece of it. And unfortunately for Mashburn, that's some pretty hefty contact with the inside wall. I expect to see both Darling and Mashburn suffer with that damage. Same thing with Bilson. In fact, Bilson, now there he is. He's being scored in the 27th position there on the left-hand side of your screen. Check in with Chris Darling, who seems to have quite a bit of rotten luck here on 3-Wide TV. There he is, running in the 17th spot, right in front of Doug Milliner in the number 6 Mobile. Milliner had a very good run going this past week here on 3-Wide TV. We had a charity race, Drew, the Drive for Charity, put together by the Total Nonstop Racing League, as well as the National Sim Racing Association right here on 3-Wide TV. And Milliner had a spectacular race. In fact, it was a great race at Talladega, only 4 or 5 cautions, 100 laps, a lot of green flag running. And so far, we've been clean and green through the first 14 laps, but it wasn't for a little bit of luck that we stayed green after that contact with the 24.
Yeah, I know that iRacing sometimes has those odd yellows which shouldn't be yellows, and then sometimes there's an actual full-scale wreck like we just saw, and no caution comes out. That 24 truck is significantly off the pace. He ran a 34.6 compared to a 33.7. Actually, that's not as bad as I thought it would be given the visuals of that 24 truck. But definitely, Mr. Unfortunate, Paul Bilson, once again, involved in something that, he was just, running that high lane, and that 24 was certainly not clear, even though he thought he was, and quite a few guys involved in that, as now Philip Scott in that 44 truck is slow, and really gets into the wall there going into the corner, and he's going to lose a lot of spots and a lot of momentum in that 44 truck, and we'll see how bad that damage is. But back out front, James Thorello, just under, right around a 6.5 tenths lead over Mitchell Adams, with Nathan Maurer about a second behind that 49 truck. So things have settled down a little bit here, at least for the race lead, though. The battle for third is kind of heated up a little bit between Nathan Maurer and JT Poulos. I believe that 971 has gotten by that 26 truck because that 26 started third, and those guys have swapped positions based on their starting grid as the 26. A little kind of unorthodox approach that looks like he got a little tight through the center and just really pushed up towards the wall and lost quite a bit of ground on that 971 truck. And that's kind of brought Joshua Sobel in that 30 kind of in play. They're trying to take that fourth spot away from that 26 truck.
Yeah, we go on board here with JT Poole. Definitely had a moment there coming out of turn number 4. We'll see if it happens again. Now that he has the 971 in front of him, Drew, we talk about this every once in a while, that when you get behind a truck, you can sometimes have what we call aero push. You lose the downforce on the nose. You see Poole fighting with that truck coming off at turn number 4. Not quite sure if he's getting that aero washed off the back of that 971, or he's just starting to lose some of the tires. Now he looks like he's looking for a little bit of grip as he goes high here through the corner. And as I say that, there goes the number 30 to his inside. That is Joshua Sobel, who's had a spectacular start to the race.
Yeah, again, the 30 truck has really picked his form up recently. I think this is the best that Josh has run all season. Has been the last few races, which is always encouraging, right? You want to improve as the season goes on. You don't want to, kind of take a step back in performance when the races start to count more and that championship looms closer and closer. So a good job thus far by that 30 is now he is up to 4th position, getting around JT Poole. And the 26 truck's struggling, man, struggling. I'm trying to look at the body language of that truck and see if he's getting tight or loose. And it almost seems like both at the same time. It's kind of hard to diagnose. It looks like he's losing the front end and then the rear end. Maybe he's doing that tight loose situation as he gets into the wall there in turn 4. That certainly looked like a tight situation, as that's going to pull that 50 truck back up there. And Bill Edwards, he did lose a few positions at the start of that race, but he's kind of regained those. He's now back to his starting position, and he is now hunting down that 26 truck.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at the fastest trucks out there on the racetrack on average over the last 5 laps, Drew. James Lorello, no surprise, fastest truck out there. Mitchell Adams, no surprise, second fastest truck out there. They're both 1-2 on the leaderboard and the top 2 fastest trucks. But third on that board of fastest trucks over the last 5 laps is the number 50 of Edwards. He's definitely closing in now on some of the trucks in front of us, and continues to kind of cycle my live timing and scoring. So Edwards is definitely on pace right now with the front 2. He just has to get around a couple of the trucks in front of him, running back there in 6th. Meanwhile, back behind, a little bit of a skirmish is going on back around the 10th position. We tune in there, number 4 of Himmelman there on the high side in the Auburn Tigers number 4. But look at Jeff Price, your winner from Las Vegas earlier this season, right there on the inside groove. And Drew, I've always thought this racetrack races a little bit like Las Vegas. High speed, you can use the banking, you can really carry the momentum up off the corner. Sometimes it gets a little bit squirrely up off the corner, so I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this number 14 do really well tonight as he just barely slides in front of the 44 of Scott.
Yeah, I think that if you are going to compare Homestead to any other 1.5, I think Vegas would be probably the best comparison. But it is substantially different than Las Vegas, but it certainly is the most similar rather than Texas or Charlotte or Atlanta. I don't think those would really indicate potential performance here. But yeah, that 44 truck certainly looks really quick here tonight. 44 has been so good on that high lane throughout the season, and it wouldn't be surprising if he tries to utilize that. But here is Colin Ullery there. Again, we're looking at kind of the tail end battle of the top 10. These guys are running 11th, 12th, 13th, right around that position. You can just see how many trucks are so close together. And that high lane really starts to, seems to be starting to come into its own as Colin Ullery is going to take a spot from that 44 truck who, it's almost like the getting stuck on the old Bristol high lane where you just kind of lose spot after spot after spot. It seems like if you kind of get stuck on that bottom, you can lose 3 or 4 spots at this point.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look at Zach Howell there in the 37. He's trying to do some good side-by-side racing there with the number 14. That is Jeff Price in that black and white truck to the outside of Howell. And I've been watching Howell's lap times. His lap times have also been pretty good. In fact, they've been on par with the number 50 of Edwards. We were just talking about how Edwards has been one of the faster trucks out there on the racetrack. Howell, likewise, until he caught this gaggle of trucks that he's trying to get around. That's been thwarting his pace just a little bit, running right down there on the inside of the racetrack. And I'll tell you what, keep an eye out for that 37 here tonight. And if you are with the National Sim Racing Association and you kind of follow it, you will know that earlier this week, James Arello won a caution-free race at the Texas Motor Speedway, 100 laps, 150 miles there. Of course, 160 laps, 240 miles here tonight around this racetrack. But Lorello's green flag win, could that be duplicated here tonight? He's out front, and we're caution-free through the first 25 laps.
Yeah, I don't think we should be caution-free, but I think that we have some drama that is going to be unfolding fairly soon with pit stops. We've seen around lap 30 be the lap to look for here at these 1.5s. I think with tonight's lap count at 160 laps, what lap would you be looking to pit at, Peter, in order to get you in kind of your proper race strategy?
Well, if you can make it to lap number 40, that would be spot on. That'd be absolutely perfect if you can get to that point, Drew. I don't think you're going to be able to get to 40 because of the number of laps and the fuel tank that this series uses. As you see, Lorello out front, 8/10 over the 49. So I'm thinking probably in the next 10 laps or so, with the tire fall off that we're seeing here tonight, these drivers are running 34. Almost 35-second laps. You can see that up at the top of the screen. That is actually a lot slower than where they were at the beginning of the race. Fastest lap here tonight, James Lorello at 32.821. So 2.2 seconds is a pretty drastic fall off, Drew. And hopefully we continue to see that fall off here throughout the season, because I know a lot of these drivers enjoy that tire fall off. But definitely I think a lot more fall off than I was expecting to see here in the first 28 laps.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it's almost 2 seconds at this point here on lap 30. So if you can't make it to 40, then that kind of opens up short pitting a little bit more. You're not going to be nearly as constrained, because I agree with you. I don't think that you would be able to make it to a nice, even, clean lap 40, but we'll see. With these lap times slowing down this much, that's going to extend their pit window a little bit. Running these 34.7s, because they're not going to be in the throttle as much. They're not going to be at as high RPMs at the end of these straightaways, and we'll see how that impacts strategy as we are now looking at guys pitting. So maybe not. Lap 30, maybe these guys are looking at undercutting their competitors, as the 5 of Ben Adams, that 62 of Colin Ullery, all making their pit stops fairly early here. The 6 of Doug Milner on the screen. And we'll see how these guys come out. They're going to make up a ton of ground on these guys staying out, like James Arello is thus far. What are these leaders going to do? You know they're paying attention to guys around him, as James Arello's really started to pull away from the rest of the field, as I believe that 49 truck pitted there, Peter.
Yeah, the number 49, Mitchell Adams, did come to pit road. I was waiting to see him there with the digger cam as Lorello flashed on by. So, Lorello's probably thinking about coming down pit road this time. He's seen his nearest competitor come down to pit. Not an easy pit road to get onto. In fact, let's see if let's assume he is coming to pit road, and indeed he is. You can see how you have to blend off the racetrack there pretty late to get down onto the flat and get the truck woed up. But good job there by your series points leader, the number 9 of Lorello, to get onto pit road smoothly. Nathan Maurer, Andrew Himmelman, Robert Dudley, TJ Buck all on pit road right now. There is the number 4 machine just peeling off. Right behind him, the number 84 there of TJ Buck. He's rolling out there, a little bit of a different look. And a caution flag has come out, so that is definitely going to change everything here at the racetrack. We have to figure out what the caution flag is for, and we'll see if we can figure this one out, because I think we have figured it out. It looks to be like we have the 47 machine. Oh, the 47. Oh, man, was that the Doziak that he caught up on? But Chris Darling, a lot of damage there, and a very tough one to call exactly what happened, whether or not he just caught up on a car that was coming to pit road. Let's see if we can go on board here, Drew, and slow this down. But there's the 05 of Doziak. Is Doziak trying to come down pit road? I don't know, or maybe the 47 of Darling was on fresh tires, and man, that's heavy contact. That's probably going to be day done for Chris Darling in the 47.
Yeah, I think that's maybe just kind of a, I don't know. It can be so hard when you're a truck that's not on new tires, battling and with fall off like 2 seconds over a run. So you're 2 seconds a lap slower than the guys around you. And yeah, I don't think he's coming to pit road. He wouldn't have made it if he was. And then just the closing rate kind of caught out Chris Darling. But you should also, if you know you're slow and you're watching guys behind you, you should be paying attention to that mirror and seeing what those guys are doing. You know, you're trying to stay out of their way because that's costing you less time. And unfortunately, that just went wrong for all parties involved there.
Yeah, definitely some rear end damage on the 05 and also pretty heavy damage on the 47. In fact, I believe Chris Darling has taken it to the garage. Not quite yet. You see him there at the top of your screen. I take that back in the number 47. In fact, he was on pit road about 7 laps ago, so he was definitely on fresher tires. Meanwhile, the number 50 of Edwards was the leader as they headed down pit road. Going to be really interesting here to see, Drew, how many of these trucks are going to have to take the wave around, because as of right now, my live timing and scoring is showing only 7 trucks on the lead lap. So that is very surprising. Of course, you never want to see a caution right in the middle of a pit cycle, but we've seen that a couple times here in the Simbox Truck Series over the last few weeks. I want to thank you for everyone joining us in the chat. Nicholas Bradley saying, keep an eye on the number 16 machine. He started at the back. He's been moving up. And unfortunately, Brian Bradley, I think right now, was one of those trucks that got caught a lap down, pitted a couple laps ago. I believe he will be able to take the wave around. I think he's only being scored 1 lap down. So that's the good news for him and that truck. But definitely kind of throwing everyone for a loop here, working lap number 34 on the first caution flag of the night. Tama Himmelman says it stinks for Chris Darling. Yeah, Chris, wrong place, wrong time there. That's a really tricky one, Drew. If you're on fresh tires catching a car in front of you and that happens, definitely not too much you can do. It's just one of those things where hindsight is 20/20, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's just these closing rates can just be unfortunate. It's hard to be the guy that's quicker too, because you don't know if that guy that you're coming up on is paying attention or not. And I think Chris Darling, once he realized the situation he was in, he did everything that he could to avoid it, and it's just unavoidable. Sometimes accidents are going to happen with that stuff. But I'm interested to see how this affects Mitchell Adams and those guys who stayed out and are taking the wave round. Yeah, they're going to be way behind James Lorello, our leader, which that worked out incredibly well for him. But they're not on fresher tires than this 9 truck. Mitchell Adams might have been the closest guy on equal tires to this 9, but Mitchell Adams had been on these tires for quite a few laps before that caution came out, versus James Lorello has put no green flag laps on these tires. This worked out perfectly for that 9 truck, Peter.
Yeah, because he was on pit road when the caution flag waved, so he's basically on the same tire strategy as all the trucks around him. And like you mentioned, all the trucks taking the wave around will have to come down pit road, or excuse me, not down pit road, but they have older tires. So they might have to come down pit road a little bit sooner than a lot of the others, because of the fact that we will, of course, have pit stops at some point in the future, especially if they're under green flag. But unable to figure out exactly who the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award winner under this caution flag was. I do apologize for that, but got to give a huge shout out to Brookstone sponsoring the Lucky Dog Award each and every week here in the National Sim Racing Association Simbox Truck Series. Pace car lights are off. We're going to get set to go back to green flag racing. We've gotten through the first 20% of tonight's race, quickly closing in on the quarter race distance here in about 4 laps or so from now here, Drew. 1 caution flag, a couple of different leaders. In fact, 4 different leaders to be honest with you. And James Arello, the number 9 machine, started on the Sim Racing Shirts pole, and now he is going to lead us back to green. And look at that, and the longest line for all those cars that took the wave around. There aren't too many cars on the outside, but the number 9 of Lorello gets us back to green.
Yeah, we might not have been able to give an official Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award, but I would definitely propose that this 9 truck would be that award recipient in spirit, as he gets a great restart. But that 26 truck got some good momentum through 1 and 2, carried that down the backstretch, and is right on the bumper of that 9 truck. The 26 we've seen have some really, really good short run pace. We'll see how long he's able to keep this up this time, or maybe he figures out how to keep that truck under him a little bit better than last time. I think this has also been really beneficial for that 50 truck of Bill Edwards, even though he's struggling just a little bit here on this restart there in 3rd position, as Josh Sobel got right up to his rear bumper. And just looking back throughout the pack, this is what we expect to see at Homestead: trucks high and low and every place in between, and racing throughout the pack there, as we're looking at the 6 of Doug Milner, the 77 truck of Doug Neal, who's quite a few laps down. This should be right around 18th position for those on the lead lap. Now the 37 truck of Zach Howell is in 14th position, trying to get his way up there. Yeah, that 37 definitely displayed a ton of pace earlier on in this race. And now that 28 truck of Jamar Dumas started 8th, down to 12th a little bit. We've seen Jamar be incredibly quick in qualifying throughout the season. Maybe struggled a little bit in comparison on race pace, Peter, but just racing, fantastic racing throughout the pack here at Homestead.
Yeah, side by side, basically all the way back through our top 20. There's Matt Vanderkoy in the number 60 Milwaukee Brewers Ford F-150. He's running in the 8th position. Right behind him, Robert Dudley and Barry Knapp. They round out your top 10 right now, but in front of them is your reigning Simbox Truck Series champion, the 49 of Mitchell Adams, with a very festive scheme on that race car. Meanwhile, in front of him was the car, one of the trucks, involved in that caution flag that came out a little while ago, the Bass Pro 05 of Steven Doziak. A new look on that race truck this week. Not sure exactly if that's the car he has, or whether or not Trading Paints is giving me gremlins, because it does seem like he's got the Dunkin' Donuts spec map on that car. If you know iRacing, you know the spec map is basically what tells the paint how to behave, Drew, whether it's chromatic or whether it's matte or whether it's kind of a glossy finish. You can use those spec mappings to tell iRacing how to interpret the paint scheme. And I see Dunkin' Donuts on the side, so not sure if that's really the car that or the truck, I should say, that he's wanting to sport here tonight. But nonetheless, he's got that 05 machine up there in the 6th position, at least for now. Of course, he was a beneficiary of when that caution flag came out, even though he was kind of involved in it. Meanwhile, a couple spots in front of them, there is the number 30, Joshua Sobel. We talked about him a little while ago. He's running inside the top 5 right behind Jeff Price, and this would be a battle for 4th.
Yeah, since the restart occurred, that 14 truck was able to get by Josh. We saw the 30 right up on the rear bumper there of the 50, challenging for 3rd position, and then maybe put himself in a little bit of a tough situation, and then that can kind of kill your momentum and allow guys to get by you. But 3rd through 7th basically is pretty close right here. Is now the 5 of Ben Adams down in 14th position, trying to make his way up through the pack. Ben started inside of our top 10, falling back a little bit, mostly due to the caution kind of falling at a really inopportune time for anybody who is being a little bit more aggressive with their pit strategy. I think this 5 truck has got a little bit more pace than 14th position, so he will certainly be trying to fight his way up through the pack. As a little bit behind him, we got 3 wide involving that 4 truck, Doug Milner, and the 88 of Michael Mooney, as they sort themselves out. Or are they going to push 3 wide again? Now, just behind Doug, as he gets himself clear of the situation, now Colin Ulrey and that 88 with Michael Mooney racing side by side. It's amazing how quickly those 3 wide battles can just kind of fizzle out, though, there, Peter, as guys can really, either kind of get spooked by that situation, or it just kind of forces you to pinch the truck off if you're on the bottom. And, if you're in the middle of a 3 wide here at Homestead, you're going to be a little leery of that situation and probably not be able to carry the amount of momentum the guy on the high side is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. As you can see there, the number 2 and the number 4 going to battle. That's Justin White and the number 4 of Andrew Himmelman. That number 2 of White, he kind of started a little bit further back in the pack, started back in 22nd. Now he's running in the 17th spot, battling with Himmelman for the 16th position. So he's picked up a couple of positions. And how about the biggest mover of the race so far? That would be the 60 of Matt Vander Kooi. He's picked up 18 positions here in the first 45 laps. So we're closing in quickly here on the halfway mark. Won't be all too long until we are there as we continue to watch this side-by-side battle. But one thing I've noticed here, Drew, some great racing, and it's all been happening pretty much in the mid-pack.
Yeah, there's been some fantastic racing through the midfield. But up front there, Peter, I don't know if you've been looking at that relative. That 26 truck has not gone away. Just under 4/10 behind James Dorello. And this has been pace over a little bit longer of a run that we haven't seen from that 26 truck. Also, Bill Edwards, I think he has been so good on some of these longer runs, as well as tracks that are kind of comparable to Homestead, maybe a little bit more different. But I'm excited to see what this 50 truck can do in third, as he's been holding steady. He kind of struggled on that restart, but now he's just over a second behind our leader. And then from there on, it's fallen back a little bit, though. Just of note, Mitchell Adams able to get back up into 6th position with tires that are not on par, not on the same lap as those guys in front of him. So we'll see if he's able to come mix it up in battle for the top 5 here shortly.
Yeah, and there's Jamar Dumas in the number 28 machine. I'm trying to see when he was last on pit road. He came down pit road, Drew, 2 laps ago, so not sure what the reason was for that late pit stop by that number 28. But definitely a late pit stop for him in that Texaco Haviland Chevrolet. But Poole has been caught here by the number 50 of Edwards. Edwards very, very quick under that last run, especially on the longer run. Perhaps maybe he's kind of learned from it, maybe pushing a little bit earlier on this particular run. But he's going to try and get to the inside of that number 26 and battle for that second spot.
Yeah, that 28 with those fresh tires, I'm not sure if he has damage or not, as he just came down pit road, but he is definitely not cutting these guys any slack. That really held up the 26 truck and has allowed that 50 to not only race him for that second position, but also give James Dorello. I mean, that gave him almost a second increase in his lead, as he was just over 3/10. Now he's a 1.1, so that's 0.8 of a second there. Simple math. But James has done a good job of dealing with this lap traffic, while the guys behind him not quite as efficient, as now this 50 truck carrying that high lane. I think he's going to be able to clear that 26. Yes, he does. The 26 will slot into third, as Bill Edwards is able to grab P2. And now what can he do with that 9 truck, Peter?
Yeah, going to be interesting to see if he can close on in. Meanwhile, we're looking at the battle for the top 10. This is between the 37 and the 84. Zach Howell and TJ Buck. They do battle for that 10th position. Looks like Zach Howell started to move his way back forward. We've highlighted that he was pretty quick under that last run and almost making contact there with the 84 coming out of turn number 2. Now here comes Ben Adams trying to take the opportune moment to slip to the inside of TJ Buck as well. So possibly TJ here sliding back through the field just a little bit as we continue this run. But Drew, we said these trucks made it to lap number 30 or so last run. Well, now, looking at the numbers, we're probably only about 7, 8, maybe 9 laps away from a good portion of the field having to head back down pit road. And hopefully we can get through this next pit cycle under green flag so everything kind of shuffles out the way it should.
Yeah, we'll see. That has been the drama spot, has been these pit stops. That 84 truck's got a real cool Miami Vice feel to it. I really, really dig that 84 scheme, as these guys, man, they're racing each other hard. They're for basically the right to the bragging rights for a top 10 running position. And these guys, once again, not on necessarily the same tire strategy. Some of these guys pitted a little early. Some of them pitted the lap right before, and that caution came out. So a little bit different tire strategy here, as some big intervals opening up between the top 10 and your leader, as we're looking at about 8 seconds from 9th and 10th to that 9 of James Dorello, though, as we continue green here. And yeah, I expect these pit stops fairly shortly here, Peter, but I wonder if this is that caution is going to scare guys a little bit about short pitting. You know, what do they think about what happened before Do those closing rates spook them a little bit? And are they thinking about, man, that's a really, really intense time to be way quicker than guys around you. There's a really high likelihood of those closing rates going wrong, like we saw earlier. And, is that going to factor into their strategies? We'll find out very shortly.
Yeah, we're right on board here with the number 49, your reigning Simbox Truck Series champion. Right there he is, very festive looking truck of Mitchell Adams right behind Jeff Price. This is a battle for the 5th position. Remember, Adams up there starting on the outside pole, ran second for the majority of that first green flag run, basically every single lap of the first green flag run, I think, except for the first one, until he came down pit road, and he's trying to slice and dice his way back up to where he was earlier in the show. Right behind Jeff Price, we mentioned earlier, your winner from Las Vegas. No slouch around these mile-and-a-half racetracks with that Arkansas Razorbacks on the side, BCF machine. And in front of him is Joshua Sobel. We've been highlighting him, last week. Great run with the new look on the Stay Tuned Sports Toyota Tundra here with that same holiday festive look. And running in the 4th position right now, just about a second back behind JT Poole, who has started to slide back from Bill Edwards. And speaking of Bill Edwards, up at the front, he has actually been closing in just a little bit over the last 5 laps on Lorello's back bumper, about 2/10 over the last 5 laps. To be exact. So the S2R machines always fast here on 3Y TV in the Simbox Truck Series. And here again, showing their muscle. Ran 1-2 last week at Twin Ring Motegi, and currently 1-2 in the same order here tonight at Homestead.
Yeah, those S2R boys have been so quick all season. Obviously, James Dorello with quite a few wins racked up on that 9 truck. But Bill Edwards has been really, really, really fast as well. And he's showing that the past few laps, actually closing that gap quite a bit to James Dorello from 1.1 to just over 7/10 of a second. Is, man, looking back at the pack here, that 60 truck of Matt Vanderkoy racing Nathan Maurer really, really, really hard. And this was a battle for 8th position, so this isn't for nothing. This isn't a meaningless battle for down in the 20s, even though I think that you would probably contest those positions just as vigorously. That 60 truck, though, kind of got out of shape, got high, and now he's fighting back on the inside, trying to regain that 8th position there, as the 37 of Zach Howell kind of continues his slow march to the front, as he's in top 10 now, down in 10th, and looking to take that 9th position away from that 60 truck, Peter.
Yeah, now's that point in the run, Drew. We're closing in on lap number 60, so a lot of these trucks have been, out there on the racetrack now for about anywhere between 27 now to about 29 laps. So I'd expect to see a lot of people on pit road. There goes Jamar Dumas in the 28. You saw a quick look at him. He is running in 24th right now. He's going to fall another lap down. It hasn't been Jamar Dumas's night. Not sure if there was some connection issues or something. We continue to watch this battle just inside the top 10. Meanwhile, between Jeff Price and Mitchell Adams, is Mitchell Adams coming down pit road here? I saw his relative really shoot up. Not sure if that might have been just a live timing and scoring glitch, but it looks like he has lost a little bit of ground to the back of the number 14 machine. Meanwhile, Joshua Sobel has closed in on JT Poole, so we could be looking at a 3-truck battle for 3rd here as we closing in on the 2nd round of pit stops tonight.
Yeah, this is kind of a worrying trend for that 26 truck, as he has, for 2 consecutive long green flag runs, really started to struggle at the tail end of those runs, as we saw him once again pushing kind of high and looking really, really tight there on the exit of these corners. And so that's something that if you're a driver, you're going to want to take into account later on in this race. Is, gets into the turn 4 wall there, and that's not going to help that handling condition whatsoever. As he's going to lose that 3rd position, probably lose 4th position, as we're going to cue that replay up for you folks. And you see here, just going through 3 and 4, everything looks fine, and then it looks like just on the tail end, he just kind of loses the front, and then boom, right in the outside wall. And that's unfortunate. We saw that happen earlier, and every little bit of right front damage is gonna make that truck likely a little bit tighter. That's not always the case, but usually that's about what happens. Is that 30 truck there? I thought he was peeling off into pit lane, just a really low exit for him. He might have missed pit road there, not quite sure. But looking at our leader, James Dorello, he's not shy of pitting a little bit before the rest of the field. and he's coming down pit road as our pit stop cycles are in full swing.
Yeah, looks like the number 9 on pit road. A couple of others joining him. There's Edwards. We'll see if he comes down pit road this time in that Chevrolet. Jordan Shepler, Justin White. Looks like the 50 of Edwards. He's going to stay out another lap here, but that definitely starts this round of pit stops without a doubt. Robert Dudley peels off the racetrack. Looks like Joshua Sobel, Mitchell Adams, they're all coming down pit road, and caution flag has come out. So once again, during a pit cycle, caution flag has waved. We have to figure out exactly what this caution flag is for here, Drew.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think, the 9 was just barely able to not stay on the lead lap. And we talked about that. We talked about, that this is the time in a long green flag run where guys are going to be most likely in conflict. You see the 28 truck. Wow, that was an interesting incident, getting hooked by that blue truck. I believe that was I'm looking for him, the 42 of Barry Knapp there. And you see this 28 carrying a ton of momentum. Take it to the inside right there. Cuts it down. And, the 42 got into the outside wall and then kind of just, maybe loses control of that truck. It's pretty unusual to see on the straightaway, but, man, he hooks that 28 who pounds the outside wall, and then the 42 gives it a good whack there as well. So, man, we've seen just dramas around these green flag pit stops here, Peter.
Yeah, and the 42 comes off the corner. He gets a little bit sideways there. That's weird, Drew. I don't know if you saw that, but I mean that wasn't there was hardly any movement of the wheel. Let's see if we can watch this. Okay, he's going down the straightaway. Watch what happens to the car. Very little movement of the wheel, and it just kind of hooks to the right. That's very strange. I'm not sure if he blew a tire or something, but that 42 just kind of hooked up into the wall, and just like that. Unfortunately, the 28 of Dumas was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's going to want to forget this race here tonight. Meanwhile, all of your leaders are on pit road. They were led by the number 50 of Edwards, who luckily stayed out, unlike his teammate James Lorello, and looks like the number 50 will win the race off pit road. Meanwhile, Lorello was able to stay on the lead lap, like you said, Drew, so he will presumably assume the race lead, but he does have a couple of laps older tires than the rest of the field, but maybe that will just balance out the field when all things are said and done.
Yeah, I could have sworn he came. Maybe he beat them to the line off of pit road, but he certainly blended in behind the leaders. So I thought he was trapped a lap down, but maybe he didn't. And man, once again, I know that the horseshoe thing. I believe it was about Kevin Harvick. Was it, Peter? That he had a horseshoe in that car, and maybe that 9 truck has a horseshoe in it, based on kind of how the dice have rolled tonight for him. Some exceptional strategy, luck, whatever you want to call it.
I believe, now I could be wrong, folks, that Peter Serto is your Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award winner under this caution. He was at least the first truck one lap down last time I looked, so we'll see whether or not he ends up back on the lead lap, currently being scored in the 15th position. Chilling Pixel joining us in the chat. I've been responding to you a little bit on some of your questions, and we also got Corey Jalowski in the chat rooting on the number 32 right here, Jansen Chevrolet of Peter Serto. Hopefully he can get back on the lead lap here as we close in on the halfway mark here in tonight's Homestead Miami 240. And if you're just now joining us and you're expecting to see these trucks turn left and right, well, that was on the schedule a couple days ago, but a late decision to change over to Homestead Miami. And Drew, that's because of the iRacing build that just was released. And of course, a lot of the people watching here might not be all too familiar with iRacing builds, but they do quarterly big updates. And this one was a pretty massive update with all of the new cars and all the new tracks released.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, especially on the roadside. GT3 car, the new open wheel car, the Indy car with the new damage model, quite a few tracks, some dirt content, a really large update with quite a few the new super speedway being released today. We know there's going to be another GT3 car. iRacing pumping out a ton of content right now, but also some tweaks for the oval side. I know the 87s were significantly altered in their performance metrics. That tends to be my focus on the road, so I definitely on the oval side rather. So that is something that I paid attention to. I'm not quite sure. Did you see any release notes regarding changes to these trucks? I know that because of the release stuff, they just didn't feel comfortable with where they were at with the road setup, and that's why this schedule change occurred, which is absolutely commendable. If you don't think that the setup's ready to put on a good show, you should absolutely make that change. But I don't think there were too many oval side changes to these trucks. I just know that the setups changed a little bit. But here we are through 3 and 4. We can talk about setups and builds later because James Zarello is going to be leading his teammate and the rest of the field to the green flag. As soon as that pace car pulls off, we'll see if he does another early restart. He absolutely does and gets a great restart, leaving that 50 a little high and dry. Normally teammates kind of communicate that, count it down a little bit better, as I think that 50 is going to be looking to hold off that 37 of Zach Howell. That bottom lane can be a little bit tricky here on these restarts. We'll see how that happens. Yeah, slides up a little bit. Looks like he got loose, and that 14 of Jeff Price cuts to the bottom of that 50 and is going to be looking to take away second position.
Yeah, looking a little bit further back, there's Mitchell Adams in the number 49, Robert Dudley, Michael Mooney in the number 80. This is another gaggle of trucks. We've seen how these restarts have been pretty crazy. Meanwhile, back at the front, Bill Edwards in the number 50, still trying to hold on to that second position. Looks like he's going to do so, at least for now.
Yeah, James Zarello with a great restart, and these guys fighting behind him is exactly what he wants to see. And they are truly battling it out here for that third position, as it's darn near a four-way battle between Bill Edwards, Jeff Price, Zach Howell, and TJ Buck, as that 14 and the 84 of TJ Buck racing side by side. And this battling is allowing a lot of the guys behind him to catch them, as it really, really slows you down if you're racing side by side. The guy on the bottom can't get up back onto the throttle and carry the speed down the straightaways like they want, and that guy on the high lane typically it just slows you down a little bit. You're going to be side drafting. You're going to have to be accounting for the guy next to you, and it's just going to alter the way you drive, and it just slows you down a little bit, maybe a little bit less so up top. But it certainly influences what you're doing. Is that 84 truck now looks like he's going to be able to clear the 14. He does. That 14 is going to have the momentum, though. Is he going to try a crossover move? He's thinking about it, ducking that 14 out. No, he backs off, lets that 84 go. But a little bit further back here, we're looking at that 26 truck there of JT Poole. We saw him with exceptional pace early in runs earlier this race. And we'll see if he's kind of altering his approach to driving this car, this truck, and see if he's taking that into account a little bit. It certainly doesn't seem like it so far, as he is just past the 5 truck of Ben Mashburn there for 6th position. But again, that 5 truck looking to get back by that 26, as that's what you're seeing. Oh, the 5 runs it towards the middle of the track. I don't think the 26 was expecting that, and ran him up. That actually kind of worked out. Looks like he's going to be able to get a run on the high side of that 37 truck, as we have quite a bit of action here, Peter.
Yeah, the 37, the 26, the 5, the 62, they're all locked in a battle for positions. Meanwhile, that bright red number 49 machine, question in the chat from Chilling Pixel, what happened to that number 49 machine? And Drew, what I think happened to the 49 and Mitchell Adams is I believe he entered a closed pit. He was coming down pit road, I believe, when the caution flag waved, and I think both the 49 of Adams as well as the number 30 of Joshua Sobel got caught by the pace car when that caution flag came out, and they got stuck one lap down. So the 49 machine of Mitchell Adams right now is in the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award position. He just needs a caution flag to come out without him being caught up in it to get his lap back. But for the man who started on the outside pole here tonight, definitely a race unraveling here in the middle stages. Hopefully he can make a comeback in the last half of the race.
Yeah, and it's not only that he's the lucky dog, it's the fact that he is fighting these guys around him. He's going to be using his stuff up, and James Zarello is not too far. Actually he is. I just saw that truck, but that is a truck that's already several laps down. But if we have another full green run, we might start to encounter some lap traffic as that 19th and 18th place truck. We'll see they're already 7 seconds back, even though we have quite a ways till our next pit stop. But we'll see here. But that's certainly, man, you want to talk about having a horseshoe in your car like the 9 truck very well might. That 49 has the opposite of a horseshoe, as he's been at kind of the bad end of those 2 cautions for 2 cautions in a row, and it's put him in a really, really tough situation that things are going to have to really turn around luck-wise for him to have a chance to get back up there and battle that 9 truck, because it's not just getting back on the lead lap. It's getting through all of the trucks between he and that 9 truck, and that's quite a tall ask, as we are really closing in on halfway here. So he's only going to have basically 100 miles if everything goes perfect and kind of the trends of the race continue to try to get back up and battle for that race win.
Yeah, meanwhile, JT Poole and the number 14, Jeff Price, this is a battle for the 4th position right now between them. Looks like Poole going to take over that spot. We've seen a lot of pace out of that 26 here tonight, although he does have a little bit of right front damage, and I believe Jeff Price has a pretty clean race truck. But now you start to see a couple of trucks come into the picture, including the 49 there of Adams, who's 1 lap down. I'm sure he's on the mission to get his lap back, potentially the hard way if he has to, the old-fashioned way, just go around the race leader and try and get it back that way. But he still has a long race to go. No worries at this present moment in time based off of the trends of the race so far, Drew. Let's see probably another caution flag here in about 14 or 15 laps right during the middle of another green flag pit stop run.
Yeah, I forgot to talk about that as we saw it, but I certainly agree with your line that what caused that last incident between the 42 truck and that 28 was a flat tire. Even if it's a right front, it feels like a rear tire's flat in these on the oval side in iRacing, and the thing just starts kind of wobbling on you. And it doesn't even feel like a flat. It feels like a suspension piece is broken. And I think that that's what happened there. And so maybe these guys are pushing their tires to the absolute limit. I mean, we're seeing the massive, massive fall off that we're seeing over the span of 30 laps. I mean, 2 seconds over 30 laps is pretty ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, we just don't see that very often. And so I wonder how far these tires are going as far as their serviceable lives are concerned, as far as how much tread's left on these things at the end of a run. And if that's not a contributing factor to what's happening, maybe that was the cause of that first deal with the 05 truck kind of making some unpredictable moves. Maybe he had a flat tire as well, as he had stayed out to the very edge of his pit window. So maybe that's something to keep in mind here as well for these guys that they're going to have to be looking out for as things have, I mean, I don't want to say calm down, because they're certainly racing side by side, but out front, 1, 2, and 3 have kind of calmed down there up front. But now looking back towards the pack, Andrew Himmelman in that 4 truck down in 18th, not where he wants to be after starting in 9th position. And he's battling Brian Bradley, who started at literally last position. They're not bad moving up into 17th. So these guys are the guys that are going to be the first guys to be encountered by James Zarello as lap traffic, and that Mitchell Adams and how he's able to get through these guys. And if that caution falls, when does it fall? And when they're lapping these lap traffics, these guys are going to really have an influence on if that 49 truck is going to be able to get back up there. But looking back here at Colin Ullery in that 62 truck in 8th position. So again, this is a battle for just the tail end of that top 10. Unfortunately, that 30 truck right behind him of Josh Sobel is a lap down at 21st. He really got caught out by that caution there not too many laps ago. But Ben Adams right in front of Colin Ullery in 7th position. So the guys in front of him, with the exception of that red 49, are battling essentially for that top 5 position. Jeff Price and Zach Howell, that 37 and 14 trucks are, well, they're in the inverse of those numbers. Said those a little backwards. But Zach Howell, again, we're seeing some really impressive pace from him. Can you recall another race where that 37 trucks showed this much pace there, Peter?
I honestly, on a mile and a half like this, I don't. So Howell, I think he had some good pace at Texas Motor Speedway, if I remember correctly. But here tonight at Homestead, Miami, that number 37 has definitely had a good race so far. The Martha White, number 39 right there, the Chevrolet. And right in front of them is, of course, the 5th place of the 14 of Price. Right behind him is Ben Adams in the 5. That's having a much better race than he had last week at Twin Motegi so far. But this is a good look at the number 26, the JT Pool, just behind the ticker there. Then you have the 14 of Buck. Then you have the 5 and the 62. This, you're basically looking from 4th all the way back to 8th right now with Mitchell Adams, the 49 right there, the car that started on the outside pole, running kind of right in between them. But looks like maybe Howell here starting to struggle a little bit because the 5 of Adams is really getting a run coming off the corner over the last couple of laps. Maybe those tires just starting to go on that number 37 truck, but so far so good for Zach Howell.
Yeah, I know that one thing that can happen for some of the drivers who might not have necessarily been restarting up front early in runs is it can change the way you drive. When you kind of restart further back in the pack, you're driving the truck, you're driving that vehicle a little bit slower. You're slower on entry, you're slower on exit because the guys around you are slower, and you're actually saving yourself a little bit by doing that. And as you get further towards the front, you are placed around guys that are quicker, so you're going to be quicker, and that can really change just how that tire behaves. As up front, we were talking about the mid-pack. The 50 of Bill Edwards has taken the race lead away from his teammate, the 9 of James Dorello. I hadn't even been paying attention to that battle. I just kind of assumed it had been settled. Let's cue up that replay for you guys.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how the race lead changed hands here. Coming down the backstretch, Edwards' strong run coming out of turn number 2. Looks to the inside of Lorello. Lorello there not going to make it all too difficult for his teammate. Edwards had been slowly closing in, and new race leader Bill Edwards, he has now led 8 laps here tonight. Only 4 different leaders here in the first half of the race, as we are now in the back half of tonight's 240-mile event. Edwards is your race leader. Lorello did lead at halfway. TJ Buck in the number 84 machine. He's still running in 3rd. Great job for him here tonight, Drew. Didn't have a great qualifying run in that Miami Vice scheme, but started back in 17th, now running inside the top 3. Great job by him in the first half of the race to keep all fenders on that truck. It looks nice and clean, and definitely showing a lot of pace here tonight, getting a little bit of luck as well out of some of the caution flags that have come out. But one thing about Lorello, Drew, remember he had slightly older tires by only about a lap and a half over Edwards when that last caution flag flew. So perhaps that is what is happening here late in the run, that his tires are starting to fade just a little bit. We've seen these tires fall off quite drastically. So maybe Lorello just had to use a little bit more of that older rubber earlier in the run, and now it's starting to fall off. But so far he's been able to keep pace with the number 50. But we're looking at this gaggle of cars. Jeff Price got himself up to 4th. JT Poole now in 5th, right in front of Zach Howell. Howell here now trying to take away the 5th spot from the 26th and the 5. Josh Sobel in the 30th creeping into the picture, but he, much like the 49, is stuck 1 lap down. In fact, the 49 and the 30 right now are the 2 trucks that are battling for the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award.
Yeah, and you know, that is something worth fighting for there, as that 49 has got it, and that 30 definitely is going to want it. So we will see how that battle pans out. But yeah, Zach Howell looked like he was battling for a top 5 now, struggling just a little bit, maybe struggling less than that 26 of JT Poole there, as he certainly doesn't seem to get a better handle on that truck as the run goes on. I thought they were side by side there. Not quite. Still single file. Looking at the digger cam through turns 1 and 2 and seeing all those guys different approaches is always really, really cool to see, as this battle for 5th is not going away anytime soon, as that 37 truck just keeps trying on that bottom lane, and it's just so hard to pass somebody down there. It's almost better to try to set him up and get a run on the high lane where you can then carry that momentum off, like we're going to see here with that 26. But the 5 of Ben Adams maybe trying to draft that 37 up there. I don't think that's quite going to work here at Homestead, as we kind of don't have long enough straightaways to do it. But JT Poole once again kind of struggling here on the long run, Peter.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to notice, Doug Milliner and Peter Serto both just came down pit road, so both of those trucks getting service for the first time here or not the first time here tonight, but the first trucks down pit road under this green flag pit stops, I should say. Philip Scott in the 44 also peeling off down onto pit road. There you see Peter Serto just flashing at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. He's peeling back out onto the racetrack, so that's going to open this cycle of pit stops. We've seen a caution flag in both of the first two cycles. Will we see green flag pit stop cycle through under this caution? We'll have to wait and find out. I'm sure Mitchell Adams and Joshua Sobel, they're hoping to see a caution flag pretty soon so they could pick up the Brookstone Animal Hospital Lucky Dog Award. But we'll just have to wait and see because for now, your race leader, Bill Edwards, continuing to pace around the racetrack as the race leader.
Yeah, and kind of just looking at the breakdown of the race, I think you're going to really try to get to lap 100. If you have the tires to do it, if you have the fuel to do it, you basically are going to be able to race the race in halves from there. I don't know if these guys can go beyond 30 laps. It certainly seems like it. We haven't seen a guy, I don't think, push it to its extreme and what these things are capable of doing. But we're here coming to complete lap 95. Are these guys going to be able to stretch a little bit more out of it? I think that even if you can't, you want to get as close to that number as possible, especially given the propensity for cautions to be occurring at this time. I don't think staying out is a bad situation at all. Plus, I think it's going to set yourself up strategy-wise a little bit better as the 4 truck there takes a late duck down onto pit road as this is, as Peter previously mentioned, one of the trickier pit roads to get on. It wasn't a mistake on the driver, but that kind of really famous 2004 moment when Kurt Busch broke that wheel and barely missed that pit entry wall, and that basically saved his championship. We know how tricky that can be, just the weight transfer with the trucks there coming out of turn 4 as our 9 truck coming down pit road. So lap 97, I think that's going to be close. Maybe stretch it 2 or 3 laps. We shall see. I just think taking it an extra lap further, if you can make 32, 33 laps, that would be ideal. We're seeing the 50 stay out, though. I think that this is an interesting strategy by this 50 truck. I think you're going to want to get to 60 to go if you're real close on fuel. We'll see how this pans out, because on the kind of flip side of that coin, James Zarello is just going to be closing on that 50 truck with those fresh tires, as we're looking at him on the backstretch. And here he comes onto pit road this time by 50 truck. Just called it. He will be pitting as you see him kind of cut that truck down there. A nice early entry, very conservative from that 50 truck, as quite frankly he should be. And onto pit road. And now how will this cycle out? The 9 truck, there you see him just on the screen, flashes by, is now our leader, the 14 truck of Jeff Price, Peter, during this pit cycle.
Yes, so the 14 of Price here running long. Lavana Sayer in the chat saying, "Go, Jeff. Remember, win or lose, your big sister is so proud." And right now that 14 machine playing the long game. And don't blame him, Drew, with all the caution flags we've been seeing here tonight coming out during these green flag pit stops. But it looks like he's going to head down onto pit road. Going to have that crew go to work at 4 fresh tires. Also, Colin Ullery getting everything he can. Look at the 60 there. Vander Koy and Dudley there at the top of the screen, both coming down. So by my math, that is just about going to sort us through the entire field. Jeffrey Johnson Jr., Michael Mooney, those 2 truck, looks like they are still out there on the racetrack. No, they're both coming down. There's Johnson Jr. and Michael Mooney taking out the cone. RIP cone, F in the chat for the cone, whatever you want to do. But right now that will cycle us through this cycle of pit road. And now it is going to be interesting, Drew. Like you said, how many of these drivers can make it to the end on just one more pit stop? Because right now, 61 more laps to go around this 1.5-mile racetrack here in tonight's Homestead 240-mile event. Mitchell Adams, he elected to stay out as long as he could. Don't blame him. Same thing with Joshua Sobel. They both pitted about 1.5 laps ago. So both of those trucks now have come down pit road to what might be their penultimate pit stop here tonight in the National Sim Racing Association Simbox Truck Series. If you're just now joining us, thank you for tuning in to 3 Wide TV. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We recently hit 700 subscribers, so we know you guys are out there. We know you are subscribing, and we really do appreciate it here on the channel. And from here on out, I hope you enjoy your night here on 3 Wide TV.
Yeah, we certainly hope that the viewers out there are enjoying this race. As the 50, it worked out pretty well for him, kind of looking at our leaders, focusing on James Morello here. Only a second behind that 9 truck in considerably fresher tires and in a better situation fuel-wise. So that 50 truck, I don't believe in jinxes, but he's in a good position, knock on wood, right here. If he can just hold steady with this 9 truck early in the run, because we've seen Lorello just be a little bit quicker than Edwards early in runs, I really think that 50 truck's going to come alive later in these runs, and then he's going to have a little bit more options fuel-wise to make this thing work on one more stop. So yeah, that 50 truck in a great position to snag possibly his first win of the season. That's an exciting prospect. But these two guys are basically in a league of their own. Looking back there at the battle for second now between Nathan Maurer and TJ Buck. This is your battle, not second, rather third, as Bill Edwards is still in second position. Between TJ Buck and Nathan Maurer, this is your battle for third position, as these guys have been up here most of the race. TJ Buck started in 17th, but he's displayed quite a bit of pace here early on, or not early on, but just throughout the race. I mean, early on, the middle part, which includes up to this moment, that 84 truck has been exceptionally quick. And he is now looking to kind of take the best of the non-S2R drivers at this point, battling Nathan Maurer. But this is letting the side-by-side battle, letting that 26 truck get up there in battle for that position as well, as that high lane has just become so successful in really holding off that bottom lane. I don't know if the rubber is coming into it, but a lot of guys I know have complained on the oval side that side-by-side racing isn't possible, and this and that and this and that. Well, these guys should take a look at this race, because side-by-side racing certainly is possible, as now TJ Buck is able to grab that third position after an extended battle with Nathan Maurer there in that 971 truck.
Yeah, Maurer came on pit road 2 laps before TJ Buck, so he's on slightly older tires now. And the 26 there, JT Poole, he pitted actually 1 lap after TJ Buck, so he even has 1 lap fresher tires than that number 84. So that is why Nathan Maurer here going to fall back to the 5th position. He's got a little bit of a gap to the number 5 of Ben Adams, who, as we've highlighted, has had a great run here tonight in the Lynchburg T-Shirt Company machine. You can see their logo up in the top left-hand corner of the screen. If you pay attention, one of the sponsors here of the National Sim Racing Association. Make sure you check them out. Link in the description to Lynchburg T-Shirt Company. Also, Lynchburg T-Shirt Company also does sim racing shirts. So if you're a sim racer yourself and want to pick up some swag, make sure you check out Sim Racing Shirts, their Facebook page. And great to have them on board as a series sponsor, as well as on that number 5 of Ben Adams. Running back behind him is the number 14 of Jeff Price. We saw him briefly as the race leader, one of the very last trucks to head down pit road. And behind him is Zach Howell. He's running down there in the 8th spot, just inside the top 10. Right behind him is the 30 machine, at least out there on the racetrack. You won't see that on the scoring pylon because Joshua Sobel is unfortunately 1 lap down, getting caught in a bad spot under the 2nd caution flag here tonight. We've only had 2 in the first 108 laps. There is Colin Ullery running in 9th, and rounding out your top 10 right now is the number 6 machine of Doug Milliner. Milliner, one of the earliest adopters on pit road. He pitted 17 laps ago, and Drew, I would think that number 6 of Milliner, he's going to need a caution, or else he's going to have to make a splash of fuel, come down pit road for a splash of fuel right there at the end.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where the it'll gain you a ton of time, but when you're not looking at the bigger picture of the race, it can absolutely put you in a situation where it's going to cost you a ton in the long run. And you kind of got to balance that on potential cautions and other factors that may play into it. Of note, that 9 of James Thorello passing Michael Mooney, lapping that 88 truck, has put Mitchell Adams out of the lucky dog spot right now. So that 49 also not in a good position due to, quite frankly, pitting a little bit early each time of the 2 yellows, right? He was either on pit road or had pitted and got caught out both times, or not on pit road, rather, in the second one, but coming down on a closed pit, which is a huge penalty in iRacing, kind of a disproportionate penalty as somebody who's had that happen before. So that 49 truck in a pretty tough spot right now, but our battle for the lead has really started to close up. As we've seen so far in this race, that 50 really, really good on these longer runs, which is honestly a little surprising to me based on what we've seen from James Thorello throughout this season. He has been the driver that has tended to be the best over the course of a longer run, but not tonight. That 50 truck really, really, stretching his legs, so to speak, here as this run has developed, and he is on the inside of James Thorello through 1 and 2, kind of threw that truck in there and forced that 9 truck up the track a little bit. It looks like the 50 was able to carry some decent momentum off. That's going to give a good opportunity for this 50 truck to be able to clear the 9, and I think he will. He will through 3 and 4, and I believe that 9 truck is going to have to give up that race lead and accept it, Pete.
Yeah, so move Edwards back up to the front. Edwards has led 19 laps. Meanwhile, Lorello has locked up the most laps led here tonight. He's led 89 of the first 112 laps that we have gone around this racetrack. A very impressive night for Lorello, but Edwards, he has 2 lap pressure tires, Drew, and I think that is also going to play to his benefit. We've talked about the tire fall off here being about 2.2 to 2.5 seconds, something like that, over a 30 lap run, which is pretty drastic here. And of course, as Edwards flashes by the start finish line, we're about halfway now in this cycle of fuel. They run a reduced tank here in the Simbox Truck Series, and because of that, they tend to make a lot more pit stops than what you'd see in real life. So I'm expecting these trucks back on pit road here in about 15 to 20 laps or so.
Yeah, and I think where these guys are able to make it is going to determine whether they're able to be competitive in this race or not. If you can get close to lap 30, I think you can probably do 32 laps based on what we've seen. I think anybody that pits before that is going to have a tall task on their hands to be able to make it to the end. But I think our leader, Bill Edwards, is in a really good position, though. Nathan Maurer hitting very early here in that 971 truck. He certainly is going to have to stop again. And so he gives up that fight for third that he was having earlier with TJ Buck. Obviously, he is going to be out of that. As the 77 is also pitted, Doug Neal. Looking back out front, our leader closing in on Jeffrey Johnson Jr. started 27th up to 18th. Hasn't had quite the back to front race that he normally has, starting towards the back, finishing towards the front, as he's in 18th position, about to be lapped by Bill Edwards and another truck that Mitchell Adams is going to have to deal with if he wants to get back up here. I think it's pretty late for that 49 to realistically have a shot at this thing, Peter. But I certainly know Mitchell's not going to give up. But when you're that truck who's been really quick and you kind of have been put in a bad situation, you're looking at those laps counting down. It's never a fun feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been there myself, and you're just kind of looking at yourself going, just when will I get that caution flag? I mean, we had 2 caution flags in the first half of the race, and we now haven't had one in about 50 laps. So definitely been a lot of green flag running here tonight. I'm sure a lot of these drivers are going to enjoy it, except for both Mitchell Adams and Joshua Sobel. Both of those drivers very, very fast in the early going, and it doesn't look like they're going to have the race to show for it. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, JT Poole, TJ Buck, a couple of drivers going at it. This battle right here is for the 4th position. Ben Adams in the number 5 actually was able to get around both of them. First time we've seen Ben Adams in the top 3 here tonight. Great looking ride out front. We were just talking about a little while ago. And then the 84 and 26, and look at the 14 there, Jeff Price. He's now closing in. Remember, Jeff Price has some of the freshest tires out of this lot right up here at the front half of the field. So keep an eye out for that number 14 machine. But this is currently about 7.5 seconds behind your race lead.
Yeah, those S2R guys have really been in a league of their own tonight. And, third is getting that interview is certainly a lot of fun. But when you look at that F3, that F2, you're like, man, 7 seconds. Oof, I got to work on that. But a really good battle that we've had all night for third, essentially, at least since the basically one-third mark of the race. And it's continued now as the 5 truck starting to scoot away from these guys a little bit, maybe an intense battle for 4th position. But certainly you're not wanting to give up those points irregardless. That 84 truck really has seemed to struggle recently as he just keeps kind of having what that 26 that JG Poole was having earlier in the race, just pushing really, really high center off and not being able to keep that front end underneath him. As just a little bit of an update between our leaders, almost a 2-second lead now for Bill Edwards, so fantastic job for him. But back on the battle that we're looking at now, the 26 has done a lot better job, in my opinion, of in this run, saving that right front a little bit more. And I don't think he quite has the speed of that 14 truck that's trying to pass him, but he's at least being able to defend his position at this point in the run, which I don't think was necessarily the case in previous runs. So good on that 26 truck on being able to kind of figure out, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to change to be more competitive throughout the course of a run? And he's been able to do that so far in this one.
Yeah, definitely. And this battle continues to rage on. Meanwhile, we've had Nicholas Bradley, Rocket City Customs PCs, in the chat. Whoa, contact between the 14 and the 26 there. Not sure if Price caught the wall, but looks like Poole had to make a little bit of evasive maneuver as this battle goes on. That was very close there, and looks like, at least for now, Poole's going to take that spot back. There's Nathan Maurer in the 971. We know he's going to have to make an extra pit stop from here, and he's currently trying to get himself back up to the lead lap in the Simbox 971, trying to go around these cars with some fresher tires. But Nicholas Bradley has mentioned that Brian Bradley in the number 16 machine has got himself up into the top 10. Started in the 29th position, shotgun on the field, now running all the way up there in the 9th position. So you do the math, that's 20 positions gained in that number 16 trucks here as we have just 38 laps to go.
Yeah, and just probably one final Mitchell Adams update. One thing that's pretty brutal, the 971 pitted, came back out, and is ahead of that 49 truck. So I think that about kills his chances to be able to get back up there as when a guy pits and has fresher tires than you and gets out ahead of you, he's able to be in front of you and be closer to the lucky dog than you are. I think that's going to basically doom that 49 truck. Even if we had a rash of cautions from here on out, I think it would be really, really difficult for Mitchell to have a realistic shot at this thing. Unfortunate for him, showed so much pace early on, but hey, that's racing. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. As the truck we're looking at, the 30, same situation. Although the 30, I definitely empathize with a little bit more as he hasn't necessarily enjoyed the success that the 49 has. Though right now, he's ahead of Mitchell Adams on pace. These guys are on the same strategy. So even though this isn't statistically significant, I guess, in 17th position, a great job by Josh Sobel to get around one of the fastest guys in the league, even if it's quite frankly for a position that is probably going to be disappointing for that 30 given his pace so far. As we're looking up front, the 84, I was talking about earlier how he was struggling with that truck, gets into the outside wall there, Peter, and I think he's really, really lost the handling on that Miami Vice themed truck.
Yeah, the number 84 of TJ Buck, he's now dropped back down to the 6th position. And Drew, the pace of Sobel and Adams here tonight, those two trucks right now, they're racing with the 6th place car. I mean, the 49 and the 30, they've definitely had the pace. They just haven't had the luck here tonight. That's the kind of the gap from them to the current race leader, the number 50 of Bill Edwards. Edwards has now put all but 12 trucks down a lap. Trying to see when we're going to see some trucks on pit road, because it's going to happen here very, very soon. James Lorello in the number 9. He really has to go here, Drew, about 2 more laps in that truck to be at the window where we know he'll be able to go to the end. He's currently done 31 laps on this tank of fuel as he goes across the start-finish line. So with 33 laps to go, if he pits with 32 laps to go, we know he can make it, but it's going to be very tight for this number 9 machine, who was your Sim Racing Shirts Pole Award winner and is your points leader coming into tonight's race.
Yeah, and with the gap that these two guys have over third, I think they can stretch this a little bit longer and be a little bit more aggressive with their pit strategy. I think, and here he comes, the 9 truck coming onto pit road. We figured he would be the first to blink. A little bit of a lockup there. I hope he didn't get a speeding penalty. But the first of our 2 leaders comes down pit road. Bill Edwards did have a 3.6-second lead on James Lorello. So he does have a little bit of room to play with us. If he wants to stay out a lap or 2, he will be able to do that and at least not fall significantly behind this 9 truck and have significantly fresher tires, as tires are worth about 2 probably tenths a lap. Is that 50 truck, man, sideways coming onto pit road, and did the 50 get slowed down in time there, Peter?
I think he was able to get load up just in time. Jeff Price in the number 14 also coming down pit road. That is going to give the race lead to the number 5 of Ben Adams. How about that for some camera work coming straight at you there in turn number 1. So the Lynchburg Chevy Silverado is still out there on the racetrack. Now, he had a little bit of a gap back to the 4th place truck here. In fact, that gap to the 4th place truck was growing when this pit cycle began. So I would expect to see Ben Adams here maybe push it. No, as I say that, he's coming down pit road. So, I mean, he probably was getting close to running on fumes anyway. So, oh, man, the 26 machine there. JT Poole getting all sideways on entry. But I was going to say, if you're one of these drivers here, you probably just want to run it dry because, you don't want to get caught out by that yellow. We've seen it happen to a couple of key contenders here tonight. And if you have the opportunity to do so and you have a little bit of gap back to the truck behind, just run it out. You don't want to get caught a lap down like we have seen here tonight out of the number 30 and the 49 of Sobel and Mitchell Adams. Both of them not having the night that they wanted. Meanwhile, Matt Vander Kooi in the Milwaukee Brewer Ford F-150. He's assumed the race lead. The only truck still out there here with Nathan Maurer. Of course, he pitted 16 laps ago in that Simbox truck. Going to be interesting to see how that works out for him. But here comes Matt Vander Kooi. 32 laps on this tank of fuel. And that will just about do it for this round of pit stops. Nathan Maurer in the 971 machine, he pitted 16 or 17 laps ago, something like that. In fact, my math says 17. So that's the reason why he's your race leader. He's had those 17 laps, Drew, on these fresher tires to get up to the lead, but he's definitely not got the same pace of the car rapidly closing in behind him of Bill Edwards.
Yeah, and despite being undercut by that 9 truck by a lap, Bill Edwards able to maintain a decent lead, just over a second, about 1.3 seconds, in fact, between he and that 9 truck. And then as soon as, the inevitability of getting by that 971 happens, the 9 is a little bit quicker right now. This kind of keeps in line with what we're seeing. The 9 truck tends to be a little bit quicker earlier on in these runs, and then the 50 really comes on late. I would not be surprised if that 50 is just kind of saving his stuff. That would definitely be the smart thing to do. Save your stuff a little bit, let him catch you, and then when he catches you, then you start to turn up the wick a little bit. As we are looking at Colin Ullery battling Philip Scott here for 8th position. A great little battle here is that 33 truck coming off pit road is not for position, but he will have fresher tires, and we'll see if Jeffrey Johnson Jr. has any impact on this battle. But Colin Ullery, another good, quiet run from that 62 truck. That's what he wants to see. And now looking at a guy who is definitely going to be thinking about what should have been, what could have been. This 49 of Mitchell Adams down in 18th position, one position behind the lucky dog of the 05 of Steven Doziak, Peter.
Yeah, and he's about 5 seconds behind Doziak, who's currently running in 17th. There is that 05 machine. He's the first car 1 lap down. Matt Vanderkoy in the number 60. Remember, he was just on pit road. He's the last car on the lead lap. Getting my first and my last mixed up. How can you do that if you're a race commentator? But Matt Vanderkoy in that Milwaukee Brewers F-150 putting together a pretty solid night there on the lead lap. But Jordan Schepler is in the number 13. Haven't really talked about Schepler all too much here tonight, running right behind Justin White in that number 2. We saw these two drivers engaged in some good side-by-side action a little bit earlier in the race. Up in front of them, Andrew Hillman in the number 4. He's had good pace in qualifying this year, Drew, but you can see that right front damage. I'm just curious to know how much that right front damage is affecting that number 4, especially on a racetrack like this where downforce is important. You're very high speed, mile-and-a-half racetrack, and you want to have as much downforce on your nose. And since Himmelman has had that damage, I just don't think he's been able to work his way forward like he would like to.
Yeah, I definitely agree. At a track like this, where you have, a tendency to slide the front end before the rear end and experience a tight condition, right side damage is no good. As we're looking at Brian Bradley and Doug Milner. And Peter, do we think Doug Milner can make it? I know we brought that up earlier, but I didn't quite pay attention to where he pitted on this cycle. Do you think that 6 can make it the rest of the way?
No, that 6 is definitely short. He pitted 12 laps ago. So with 23 laps to go, he'd have to go about 35 to 36 laps on a tank of fuel, and we have seen no driver able to do that here tonight. So the number 6 is definitely going to need a caution here in the last half of the race. We think James Arello is just on the cusp of making it. He might be running on fumes at the line. Philip Scott currently running in the 10th position. He's also short on fuel. We know that. Brian Bradley, we're watching him right now. He might be about a lap short. He's going to have to save fuel in this final run to the finish. I'm looking up and down the scoring pylon to see if there are any other drivers who might be a little bit short. I think we have covered them here, Drew. So that number 44 there, Philip Scott, he's sliding back through the field, currently running in 11th. He might be saving as much as he can get, but he pitted 23 laps ago. So you would think that Philip Scott will be on pit road here in the next 7 laps or so. So he's hoping for a caution for that strategy to work out. Meanwhile, we just were mentioning Andrew Himmelman in the number 4 machine. He must have just pitted, or something must have just happened to that number 4 machine. He did just pit. He is currently being scored in 21st position, but we now know that he will be able to make it from here to the end.
Yeah, I think if you know you're gonna have to pit, it would be beneficial to come down now and have at least a little bit of a pace advantage. Maybe just take rights, and take a little bit of a splash. I don't know if that 4 took tires or not. I certainly would have. I at least would have taken right side tires, especially with how tight it seems like these guys are out here. But if you're loose, you don't want to take right sides at all, because that definitely tends to make the car significantly more lively on the rear end, because those right sides just have more grip. And then iRacing, that just tends to make you a little bit looser. As now we're looking at that 84 truck of TJ Buck, battling it for 3rd at one point, has now slipped back down to 7th, as his struggles late in that last run really did him no favors, as he has lost quite a few spots. And quite frankly, Zach Howell was up in that battle as well. He has fallen back quite a few seconds behind Jeff Price, as that whole battle has really spread out there from 3rd to 7th. Guys that were up there just seemingly a few laps ago, it's been quite a few laps at this point, have really kind of fallen off of the 14 and the 5. They and quite frankly, the 26, they have really separated themselves from the guys that we are looking at right here, who are only a second back behind Colin Ulrey in 6th position. But side-by-side racing here. You know, every position matters in the point standings, and you're always trying to battle those guys. I know the 84 TJ Buck, he's one of those guys that has been really quick at times and has struggled at others, and that's kind of put him in a tough situation point-wise. He's definitely not going to be wanting to lose that position to that 37, though he has had to cede it for the time being. As now we're looking at Colin Ullery, and as you mentioned in the screen, is the 30 truck, which unfortunately is not full position, but we see just how quick that 30 is. He arguably should be running 6th on pace, if not a little bit better than that, Peter.
Yeah, it definitely been an interesting night for him. And, you know, all things considered, I'm sure Ullery will be happy with the way this race has been tonight. He came into last week's event 9th place in points, a couple of points back behind Mitchell Adams. But, you know, trying to stay above the 10th position in points, because, of course, we all know 10th position is the cutoff here in a couple race time for the Simbox Truck Series chase for the Cup. So that number 62 machine putting together another solid night here tonight. I'm sure he'll be happy with that. Meanwhile, a couple of the drivers who were on the outside looking in, including Robert Dudley. And Robert Dudley in the number 15 machine, he was one of those drivers. We haven't really talked about it all too much about him specifically, Drew, but he was one of those drivers, much like the 49 of Mitchell Adams and the number 30 of Joshua Sobel, who got caught under that second caution flag that we had here tonight. And he's been stuck one lap down, and he's on the outside looking in to try and race his way into the chase for the Simbox Cup. And this is not going to be the night he was looking for sure, in that Toyota Tundra.
Yeah, this certainly has, I mean, not the prospects at this point, certainly likely to shake up the points considerably. I wish the Dan Lisa site were up, because I'd be scrolling through it, kind of looking at where guys are, what kind of points they're looking at snagging tonight, and seeing what's going on. But right now, unfortunately, we can't do that. But the 14 of Jeff Price just lost quite a bit of time. If we could, I'm going to go back and look and see what happened. 14 was in 3rd position, 7 seconds behind our leaders. He's just dropped to 10 seconds behind our leader in the span of 1 lap. So if we could just kind of figure out what's going on there, Peter.
Yeah, here he was running with the number 5. Oh, was this the wall? This was the wall. A little bit of wall glue scraped up the right side of that number 14 machine. You can see all that ground that he lost to the number 5 of Adams. Adams got up into the 3rd position again, which is the highest spot we've seen him in the race here all night. We saw him in 3rd earlier, so tied as the highest we've seen him. And that number 14 also losing out to the number 26 of JT Poole. We're back live, and you see those two continuing to duel for that 4th position now, as Ben Adams has scooted away just a little bit in the number 5 Lynchburg T-Shirt Company Silverado. This is over 10 seconds behind your race leader, Bill Edwards, who has checked out now to a 3-second lead up at the top of the field. No one seems to be able to catch the number 50 at this point of the race. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, Justin White, Jordan Shepler. This is a battle for the 10th position here tonight. And these drivers here doing battle for that spot. A good job by the two here of Justin White. He was on the outside looking in on the point standings as well, going into last week's race at Homestead, at tonight's race at Homestead, Miami. Last week's race at Twin Ring Motegi. So that number 2 hoping to have a good showing here tonight, and trying to get into the top 10 here with just about 10 laps to go.
Yeah, this race has flown by. It's just 9:40 Central Time, and we are already at 10 to go. Man, these guys have done a fantastic job of keeping this race clean, despite, I would argue, they're probably should have been one more caution earlier in this race when that 24 truck of Ben Mashburn and his teammate all got caught up on a deal on the front stretch, didn't throw a caution, maybe kind of spread the field out a little bit more, but ultimately wasn't, and the race kept going, and that's what we've done so far as the 28 truck gets up into the outside wall there. Not what Jamar Dumas has definitely been wanting, and unfortunately we've been seeing that from that 28 truck just a little bit this year. Exceptional pace in qualifying, and that just hasn't translated to success come the race. But back looking at the 14 of Jeff Price, you saw just how that little bit of wall contact just made such a massive, massive difference in that 14 truck's pace. These trucks just have not a ton of power in their current iteration compared to past times. And so when you lose that momentum, especially on corner exit, that didn't just kind of slow you down for that part, and then you can get back up and gas it up and carry on. Like if you had a little bit of a moment at a road course, that kills you for almost a full lap, because then that changes your entry into the next corner where your rhythm's just going to be a little bit off. And unfortunately, that cost him 2 positions and knocked him off the podium. But looking back here at 10th and 11th position is that 13 truck, and who is maybe about even with that 2 truck that is not too far behind him. And I know some people don't tend to care. I always, if I'm in 11th, I really want that top 10, right? I really, really want it. I probably overvalue those thresholds. I want that top 5 if I'm in 6th position. I want that top 10 if I'm in 11th. It's just one spot different, but it always has added a little bit of fuel for me. But here comes that 44 truck who has pitted and is going by the outside of that 2 truck, Peter, as I think some of the guys that were a little bit short are now having to pit. And that's why we're seeing some of those guys be so exceptionally fast that are at least a lap down at this point.
Yeah, the 44 there, Philip Scott being scored in 21st, 1 lap down. Michael Mooney in the number 88 machine. He must have had some type of speeding penalty on that number 88 machine at some point here tonight, because he was on the lead lap. I do think that's most likely the case, because Mooney has had good pace here tonight in that number 88 machine and that F-150 running right down there on the white line. But he's running in 22nd. Philip Scott, on the other hand, trying to run down Andrew Himmelman. He's about 3 seconds up the road in front of him. Meanwhile, Andrew Himmelman, there he is. He's trying to run down Robert Dudley, and he's on slightly fresher tires than Dudley in the number 15. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these last few spots kind of shake out. But at least for now, is that Doug Milliner headed down pit road? No, not quite yet, although he is going to drop 1 lap down. We're down to just 11 trucks on the lead lap with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, that 6 certainly is struggling. I mean, we've seen what these tires look like over the span of a really long run, and that 6 is running just about as long as we've seen anybody. Man, if you can't make it, I just don't know why you wouldn't have kind of split that last segment in half and tried to maximize your tire difference. But, different strategies for different folks. They are more than, have the right to do whatever they feel is their best strategy. And we know the best strategy tonight so far, pending anything kind of wacky happening, is this 50 truck. Bill Edwards has put on a performance and beat James Zarello like I don't think we've seen anybody do. 5 seconds ahead of James Zarello at this point. A pretty spectacular performance here on this last stint by this 50 truck, Peter.
Yeah, Edwards, he's been due for a win, hasn't he, Drew? I mean, that number 50 has been fast pretty much every single time we've been out there on the racetrack this year, and he's just been due to get to victory lane. We saw him fast last week at Twin Ring Motegi. We thought maybe last week was the week, but I think barring a late race caution, as we now just have 2 laps to go, we'll finally get to see this 50 get to victory lane.
Yeah, he certainly has had pace and has been caught up in other people's, incidents and whatnot, and just kind of not quite nailed the pit strategy and everything like that. But tonight he has absolutely done what he has needed to do thus far. We still have 2 laps to go, as now he is coming to the white flag. But looking throughout the rest of our top 5, we looked at Jeff Price for a little bit, a good run by him. We looked at the 5 for a little bit, a good run from Ben Adams there in 3rd position, as the white flag is out for Bill Edwards at this point. And Josh Sobel there, we've talked about his misfortunes. But, 16th isn't horrible given kind of the situation that he was dealt. But focusing back on the leader, coming through turns 3 and 4 here for the final time. A little bit of lap traffic, but that won't matter as he has over a 5-second lead. But Bill Edwards, coming out of turn 4, will snag his first victory of the 2020 Simbox Truck Series. A fantastic run for that 50 truck.
Yeah, Bill Edwards finally gets the job done. 62 laps led here tonight. His teammate, James Lorello, coming home in second. Wow. Finally, Bill Edwards gets to go to victory lane here in the Simbox Truck Series. It was definitely coming for quite some time, and I'm sure he's going to slow it down here on the front stretch and burn it down for all the fans. Last week, I think we saw a couple of the teammates, Edwards and Lorello, come together on the front stretch and do a little bit of celebratory burnouts together, and I'm expecting to see much the same here tonight at Homestead, Miami, as he whips that thing around, lights up the rear tires. Great run for him, and also great run for a third-place finisher, Ben Adams, in the number 5 machine. He was actually on the bubble a couple of weeks ago when we went into Twin Ring Motegi. So Ben Adams here with a third-place finish here tonight. He will be absolutely ecstatic with that run. Has the 50 run out of fuel? That's my question, because seems to be dead stick for that number 50 right now.
Yeah, I think he might be just kind of waiting for his teammate to do a nose-to-nose burnout as maybe I can't believe he would be out of fuel because he pitted after the 9 truck. But maybe that is the case. But it doesn't matter. He had enough to make it to the checkered flag, and that's what matters, as he has had so much pace throughout so many races thus far, and is able to grab his first win here at Miami, and a great performance by Bill as well. A 5.6 second advantage over James Lorello, who has been so incredibly quick at so many tracks tonight. An exceptional run by Bill Edwards in that number 50.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're going to step away here for just a brief moment on 3Wide TV, line up some post-race interviews for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, folks, so welcome back to 3Wide TV, and tonight's 240-mile event here at Homestead, Miami has come to its conclusion. And let's see if we can dial up our third-place finisher here tonight, Ben Adams, Lynchburg T-Shirt Company, on the hood of that number 5 machine, of course, one of the series sponsors. And Ben, much better race for you this week than last week at Twin Ring Motegi. Last week, it seemed like your race was done in the first 5 laps, but this week, you kept all 4 fenders on that race truck. You had a little bit of fortune go your way with the way the cautions fell here tonight, only 2, and some great long-run pace out of that number 5 machine here tonight. Sees you walking away with a third-place finish. Tell us about it.
Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, last week I got a little bump on the first part of my Tigi. I fought back, got 7th, but I was more proud of that one until this one, man. This was so much fun. I just found the groove. I found exactly where to run the tires so I could get good tire wear. I wasn't in the league with the Lorello and Edwards. They were sort of much faster. My play was to stay out a lap longer than them and then hope that they had to pit or run out of gas, but they were shutting their truck off and they were able to make it.
Yeah, they definitely played the long game there and were able to make it on fuel. But, all things considered, Ben, fantastic run for you here tonight. Of course, going into Twin Ring Motegi a couple of weeks ago, you were on the bubble. You were the cutoff driver for the Simbox Chase. That's coming up here very, very quickly in just a couple of races' time. How important is it to have a strong run at this point of the season?
Well, considering, we've got the road course coming up and, like everybody else, I'm just a mediocre road course racer. So I felt like it was very important for me to come in here, get my Lynchburg T-shirt company Chevrolet up front and just kind of, hold my own. So it was critical to get a top three. I really needed it because if I slip up next week, I'll be glad I had this good finish.
Yeah, and of course, next week we do go to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We go north of the border up in Canada, and then after that, Kentucky and North Wilkesboro to round out the regular season, if you will, before we get to the Simbox Chase. What are your thoughts about the next three races? We kind of heard, you're not the best road course racer, so Canadian Tire might be a question mark for you, but then you go to Kentucky and North Wilkesboro. What about those events?
Well, Kentucky, I love Kentucky. It's one of my best tracks. It's actually kind of to me a lot like this track. It drives very similar to this one, so I'm pretty excited about Kentucky. North Wilkesboro is one of those races that's just a crapshoot. It's if you do good, you do good, but there's going to be a lot of wrecking, banging, bumping, and you know, uh, I just got to hope I get a good finish at Kentucky, salvage Canadian Tire, and then just have fun at Wilkesboro and hopefully locked in by that point.
Yeah, I know North Wilkesboro being a short track to kind of round out the regular season is going to be a question mark and is going to be a very entertaining race here on 3Y TV. I'm very much looking forward to it. But Ben, I know you always have a lot of support in the chat, and it's a 3Y TV tradition to give you the opportunity to give some shout outs. So let's hear them.
Yeah, I'm gonna start out thanking my family. My wife's very patient. She lets me run. Andrew, my stepson, he runs in this league. He had a tough run tonight, but thanks for all he does to help me. Of course, Revolution Motorsports. I mean, these guys, from Josh and Paul and Andrew and Colin and Mitchell, man, we practice hard every week. And then of course my sponsor Lynchburg T-shirt company, and the NSRA. Chris, he does a great job doing great things. And then you guys, man, y'all did a fantastic job covering these races inside every single week, and I just appreciate y'all.
Well, definitely, it is great to be a part of the National Sim Racing Association family. But Ben, congratulations on your third place finish here tonight, and best of luck next week turning left and right at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right, well, that is going to do it for our runner-up finisher here tonight. I believe that Drew Eisenman has caught up with James Lorello in the number 9 machine.
Well, James, it's not often that we are interviewing you and you haven't taken the top step of the podium. Your teammate displayed a ton of pace over the long runs. What do you think made the difference tonight?
Yeah, Bill was just awesome on those long runs. I think he was a lot better at getting off the corner and not scrubbing the tires. I was having trouble getting the car pointed, and he was just way better at it. So hats off to him. That was really awesome racing, awesome run for both of us.
Yeah, you guys are kind of turning into the Mercedes F1 team of NSRA. It's pretty spectacular to watch you guys kind of do it week after week. It seems like recently. What was the truck like tonight? We saw guys that seeming like getting loose on the straightaways. We saw guys pushing on the exit of turns 2 and 4. Were these trucks tight, loose? Were there tire wear issues? What was going on?
Yeah, I think they were loose early on. First couple laps, definitely loose off, and so you had to watch it and take it easy on the tires. And then if you overdrove the tires at all, I mean, it pushed like a dump truck, and you'd go right into that wall off 3 and 4. So that's why it was really important to save tires a bit. And why Bill was so good, and I was able to finish 5 seconds behind him. But yes, it was real tight after a little while, especially if you got those tires too hot.
And early on in the race, you just timed your pit stop perfectly. What was going through your mind when those cautions came out when you were basically on pit road getting your pit stops done?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe how lucky I was, honestly. I didn't expect that to happen at both times. Actually, the second time it happened, I pit on the wrong lap. I came in too early, and I wouldn't have made it on gas. So I was thankful that caution came out because otherwise that would have ruined my race. So hopefully I can keep that luck up. I hope it doesn't run out.
And yeah, you mentioned fuel mileage and how we know you kind of undercut Bill a little bit throughout that last long green run, and then you came in with 32 laps to go, right around there. How close was it on fuel for you?
Yeah, I was just a lap and a half to the good, and somehow so was Bill. So I don't know how we were running it differently. I was able to save more gas, and he was able to save more tires. So I knew I had to make it 32 laps every time to bring it home and 5 stops. So that was the goal, and was able to get there barely.
Well, I typically like to finish up these interviews with asking what you're looking forward to next week. We've already talked about that, as this was supposed to be most sport and that changed. So just kind of looking at rounding out the regular season here in the Simbox Truck Series, Kentucky Speedway and North Wilkesboro. What are your thoughts on those two tracks?
Yeah, Kentucky I really enjoy, and then both Mosport and North Wilkesboro I'm not as great at. So we'll see how North Wilkesboro is. I'm glad that I'm already in the playoffs and don't have to punch my ticket with those as long as I can have good finishes.
Yeah, absolutely. You are continuing to have great finishes week after week. Congratulations on your second place finish tonight. Again, an S2R 1-2. Is before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, thanks to the sponsors of the league, Simbox and Max Grafix and Brookstone Animal Hospital. I'm glad to have them so we can do this. And congrats to Bill. I'm glad he got his first win, got the monkey off his back. He was so fast tonight. And thanks to our other teammate Matt at S2R. So hopefully we can finish the season strong like this. We'll see.
All right. Thanks for talking with us, James.
See you guys.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight's runner-up driver of the number 9 machine of James Arello. But time to go down to victory lane for the first time this season. It is the number 50 machine of Bill Edwards. Bill, congratulations. Finally making your way to victory lane here in the season. Seems like you've been the bridesmaid multiple times this year. But here tonight, getting the job done. Some great long run pace out of that number 50 truck here tonight. Tell us about it.
I just told everybody that I was happy to get the monkey off my back. I finally stole one from James. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, it definitely is not an easy task. I mean, we saw you almost break through last week at Twin Ring Motegi. It seemed like you possibly might have had that one, but some late race snafu, and you kind of fell back behind him. But nonetheless, here tonight, lights out for that S2R machine. And how important is it to get the monkey off the back at this point of the season?
It's, with the chase coming up and everything, it's really important. Yeah, there's a lot of stress when you haven't won and everybody else has won, and you got like my teammate James. I think he's got like 7 or 8 on the season or something like that. So it feels real good. I'm pretty happy. I could be happy right now.
Well, I know last week we got to talk to you about going to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I know you were excited for that one. I don't know if you were as excited to go to Homestead the week after, but things got swapped. So now next week we're going to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I know you're excited to go there. You are a good road racer yourself. But I'll kind of ask the same question that Drew asked Lorello just a little while ago, and that is, the 2 races after that, we got Kentucky and then, of course, North Wilkesboro to round out the regular season, if you will. But Bill, what are your thoughts about those 2 races after Canadian Tire?
Kentucky should be fine. North Wilkesboro, it's a bit of a wild card. I think I've only ran one official race there, and I think it was even an open set one. It's just a little different track, but I'll have to put some laps in there just because it's new and I haven't got experience with it. But should be fine. I'm just hoping I can finish out the year strong here, maybe steal a win or 2 more from James and finish out the season strong.
All right, well, Bill, before we let you go, any shout-outs for us here on 3Y TV?
Yeah, I got to thank Stan Hausman, Brookstone Animal Hospital. I thank Simbox and Max Grafix. Got to thank Fiddle Concepts. Well, that's me, I guess. So I got, but I'm giving a shout out to them. FiddleConcepts.com. I gotta say hi to my mom. Hi, mom. I gotta thank Matt and James, my STR teammates. It's awesome having those super teammates who just push each other all the time. I thank my girlfriend who was cheering from the other room. So I think that's you guys, 3Y TV. You guys do an awesome job, and I definitely can't wait to go back and watch this.
Yeah, definitely a fun one here tonight. I'm looking forward to turning left and right next week at CTMP. But Bill, congratulations. Getting to Victory Lane finally here on 3Y TV. And best of luck next week. And maybe we'll get to talk to you again then.
Sounds good. We'll see you next week.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for our post-race interviews as Bill Edwards gets to go to Victory Lane for the first time this season here. But Drew, I think it's about time for us to go through tonight's final race results, so take it away.
Absolutely. Our winner tonight, Bill Edwards, grabbing his first victory of the season. His teammate at S2R, James Lorello, in that 9 truck finishes second. Ben Adams gets a really, really good run in tonight, considering kind of some of the misfortunes that 5 trucks had throughout the season. He finishes third. JT Poole, a solid run, finishing fourth. Jeff Price in that 14 truck, an up and down season, but certainly an up tonight, finishing fifth. Colin Ullery in P6. Zach Howell, a good run in P7. TJ Buck in the 84 truck overcame some pretty significant struggles to still bring home a top 10 and 8th position. Brian Bradley, man, what a run. Started 29th. Our Taz Racing Customs biggest mover award goes to that 16 truck. Started 29th, finishes 9th. The 16 of Brian Bradley, a heck of a run. The 13 of Jordan Shepler started 12th, finishes 10th. He'll round out your top 10.
Yeah, finishing in the 11th position here tonight, Justin White in the number 2 machine. The first truck 1 lap down. Doug Milliner in the number 6. Somehow, some way, that number 6 machine was able to go 35 laps on fuel. I don't know what magic fuel tank Doug Milliner had, but we were all up here in the booth saying, yeah, there's no way. We haven't seen anyone make it more than 33 here tonight, and that was with caution laps. Milliner was able to squeak it out, finishing in 12th. Nathan Maurer coming home 13th. He was one of the trucks, I should say, on an alternate pit strategy. Matt Vanderkoy finishing in 14th. Joshua Sobel 15th. Bad luck, Josh, as I said in the chat a little while ago, having bad luck here tonight when the caution flags flew. Stephen Doziak in the 05 finishing 16th. Mitchell Adams also succumbing to bad luck, finishing 1 lap down. He started on the outside pole, just barely missing out on the Sim Racing Shirts Pole Award. Robert Dudley on the outside looking in. He needed a good finish here tonight. Not going to do it with an 18th place finish, 1 lap down. Andrew Himmelman finishing 19th. And rounding out the top 20, Jeffrey Johnson Jr., Drew.
Yeah, the guys that wish they would have had a little bit better finishes here. Philip Scott in that 44 truck had to, right around top 10 pace, and he is not able to overcome some late race issues. He will finish in 21st. Michael Mooney, as we mentioned late in the broadcast, had some problems late. Despite having some pace in that 88 truck, will finish 22nd. Peter Certo in that 32 will finish 23rd. Jamar Dumas qualified 8th, finished 24th. Disappointing run for that 28 truck. The 77 of Doug Neal had problems in the first few laps. It didn't get better from there. He will bring it home in 25th. Barry Knapp, we saw, being involved in our last caution, our second caution, will bring it home in 26th. Ben Mashburn involved in the non-caution earlier in the race in 27th, as was his teammate Chris Darling in finishing 28th. And Paul Bilson, Mr. Misfortune, has it happen again. He will round out your field, finishing 29th, 136 laps down from that 50 truck, our winner, Bill Edwards.
Yeah, definitely been an interesting night here at Homestead, Miami. Next week, we hopefully get to go north of the border for real this time to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park to kind of, just quench my thirst for road courses here with these trucks. Going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you don't miss that one and hitting the notification bell here on 3Y TV. It's, in fact, the next live race that we have here on 3YTV. We don't have anything planned over the next 7 days. So hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss any lap of the Simbox Truck Series action here on 3YTV. But Drew, before we go, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a really good display from S2R. Once again, I made that Mercedes comparison a little bit as a joke, but it's really coming true. Those guys are really, really figuring these trucks out and figuring what they need to do strategy-wise to win these races, because that's just what they're doing. A fantastic performance by that 50 and that 9 truck, and we'll see if it continues at Mosport. I'm expecting Bill to be really quick. He's a mainstay of the NSRA road stuff. So I think Bill will be one of those guys to be looking out for. But James Lorello, I know he might not love those road courses, but I'm not counting him out. And I'm looking for that 49 to bounce back from a bit of a struggle tonight.
Absolutely. Going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you guys tune in. Same place, same time right here on 3YTV. Before we go, want to give a final shout out to our friends over at SimTV for the camera angles that we bring you each and every week here on the channel. Great iRacing broadcast channel to follow if you haven't already checked them out. But for myself, Peter Short, Drew Eisenman, and everyone here in the National Sim Racing Association, as well as, of course, Simbox, make sure you check them out for all your iRacing button box needs. We'll see you guys next week. See ya!